Hi, hello. So today I'm basically going to do what I did yesterday. But I'm going to do it right. And we're going to see what comes out. If it's similar, if it's different. I mean, what other options are there? Some degree of similarity. All right. So I have shuffled these. I'm going to give it some cuts again, but the only difference is today I'm using the SKT Revelations edition instead of the Vitruvian edition, and I'm doing that because I get to make that choice. I don't know. It just felt right, you know? So that's why. This Pisces season is so wild. Um, so what we've entered the second decan of Pisces, which is the second 10 of roughly 30 days. And it's been just like, I feel like things are just happening. And I'm just like, okay. Well, I guess to be fair, the first, what? Where's my sun? Is my sun in my 12th house or in my 11th house? I'm pretty sure my sun is in my 11th house. I think like the first 10 or so degrees of Pisces for me are in my 11th house. And then it goes into the 12th house. But it's just been like wild. Like all of a sudden, I just got an announcement today at work that there's going to be some changes to the personnel. And I'm like, what? And I also feel like I've been like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's all this Saturnian, Neptunian energy. I don't know if it's because Venus and Mars are about to enter Pisces. And so it'll be what? Venus, Mars, Saturn, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, and the Sun all in Pisces. I think by then Mercury will be in Aries if it isn't already. I don't know. Anyway, I just don't. It's crazy. It's madness. All right. So I'm going to do what I was supposed to have done yesterday. Meaning, I'm going to do a person, place, thing, a thing, place, person, a thing, place, and a thing. So that's how it's supposed to be 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. I've washed my hands a lot today, and you can tell. It's fine. It is what it is. Again, off the top of the deck, I'm going to do the person, and at the bottom of the deck, I'm going to do the thing. So again, basically like yesterday, but done in the right order. So now the first person we have is the lover. Interesting. And then from the bottom of the deck, we have the gem, the threshold, and the starborn. What? The gem, the threshold, and the starborn with the lover. Next, we'll get one of these. We have the shadow. And one of these. The womb. So again, the womb comes out in the second line, but instead of it coming out from the bottom of the deck, it comes from the top. The top is more like conscious, less subconscious. It's more of a like a foreground, forefront, easier to like something that we can see more so than something we would need to discern. It's more overt. And then we get 2 from the bottom. So we have the nectar. Oof. And the desert. And then for the last one, we'll have Eros. So we have the lover, the shadow, and Eros. Apocalypsis. We got two in this deck. Cards 71 through 78 are like the 8 steps in Gnosticism or something like that. I don't know. 8 major transitionary periods or themes. And we got 2 of them in this last row. And then we have the offering. And then from the bottom of the deck, we have the ring. But kind of like, it's not like big oof. It's almost like, I mean, of course, I guess I don't have to mention the cards that came out yesterday, but because the womb came out twice, there was also yesterday, the third line was the only one that had a card of transformation, and it was Thanatos. It was the comic, The Temple in Thanatos. But because the womb came out twice, it's the womb and the shadow, and then we have the nectar and the desert. And there's something about the shadow being with the womb and the alluring nature of nectar. It feels like the energy pulled from yesterday to today, or it moved, it shifted from yesterday to today. I'm going to shuffle this up. Oh, I saw a flash of the card, but not enough to be able to identify what it was. And again, I'll pull from the middle, but this time it'll only be 3 cards. We get 2 for the first one. We have the grotesque and the giver. Then we have the hunt, and we'll do this one, the defector. Bottom of the deck is the sharpshooter. 5, 6, 9, 8, and 7. No, 5, 6, 9, 8, and 8. There is no 7. 5 of cups, 6 of pentacles, 9 of swords, 8 of cups. There are no wands. Cups, pentacles, swords, cups. The 8 of wands is at the bottom. So maybe it almost sits in the... I could say that these sit in the same space. And then the Archangel of Mysteries was under that 8 of wands. And I'll say that these sit in the same space because it's like walking away from something here in the 8 of cups, but movement towards something in the 8 of wands. So it's similar energy, but with a different reference point for movement. Now, what's interesting is like, even with the desert here, it feels like, I feel like I said nature abhors a vacuum recently, but it feels like that. Like there's something about the desert isn't devoid of life, but there's something about the potential for something. It's not the potential for something is greater where it doesn't exist. It is very nature abhors a vacuum. It's how things naturally have a tendency to go from a high concentration to a low concentration. Things have a tendency to go where it's less crowded. right? Like smells, right? How a smell will fill a room and fill a house rather than it all staying concentrated where it is. It's like a spill. The water will naturally tend to move outward from the source of the spill to occupy more space, I guess. It's the tendency for things to occupy more space or to prefer a freedom to occupy space. And the desert is one of the more spacious places. Now, again, it's not completely devoid of life, but there's something about the emptiness of the desert that it feels like it draws things to it. And then in both the desert and the nectar, we see this hand like reaching up. Maybe there's just an energy that asks, which is interesting. Well, yeah, but this is the bottom of the deck. So this is a little, I feel like this would be easier read or more expected if from the top of the deck, the more conscious, the more like us, and then like the divine spirit, the unseen, the subtle, the intangible at the bottom of the deck. Like if we were reaching up and then spirit was offering, it would be one thing. But here, spirit is reaching up or reaching out in the second row or in the second line. And then in the third line, we're the ones, or the top of the deck is where the offering is being made. So it's almost like someone that's meeting spirit's request rather than spirit meeting someone's request. But again, there are two cards of transformation here. So maybe it shouldn't be too surprising that an individual or an energy may stand in a position to offer spirit something. That's it. That's what I had left from yesterday. It was just like ice melt. Excuse me. Now the top of this energy is very similar to what we saw yesterday. The top of this feels like the second line from yesterday, more so. The mother and the whatever was next to the mother, I don't remember. But it's the lover. No. It feels like the lover is just naturally loving and is seen as such. But on the other side, it's the starborn, the threshold, and the gem. On the other side is this energy that is yet unborn, yet unmaterialized, excuse me, but very, very, very valuable. And then spirit is like, I'm looking for someone to take care of or nurture or someone who can prove again. These are the hands that are reaching out. And then the more conscious top of the deck, us, queer energy is the one that offers. And again, just like we have the lover up top, we have Eros here. So Eros is reading as like a love, to like a godly degree. And again, like we saw the mother yesterday, and the mother who was like the energy that was nesting and was preparing. And I don't know, like the shadow is with the womb. The shadow being with the womb, again, it feels like it just pulls on yesterday and how it didn't go where we expected it to go. But also, you would expect a womb to receive. And this is a womb that offers something. So maybe the shadow of the womb is the bit of the masculine within the feminine. It's a womb that gives. It's a womb. It's almost like a. Ew, that's disgusting. Sorry. It's a womb that's like external rather than a womb that's internal. Again, it's a womb that carries some kind of masculine attribute rather than the feminine um, default. And then this covenant is sealed by the rings on Spirit's end, sealed by the rings at the bottom of the deck. Now, I could say that this is a lover that walks their own path because that's what the Five of Cups in this deck is all about. The Five of Cups in this deck is the grotesque. There's something about the grotesque that makes them stand out, that makes them different than everyone else. And they're teased, ostracized, made pariah, or isolated because of it. And because of that, there's a pressure for the grotesque to change, to be less authentic in order to fit in. But the thing that they sacrifice is the very source of what makes them special. It's connected to like their magic, right? Or you could just say like it's their it factor. There are some people who it makes me think of like America's Next Top Model or some show where like there'll be someone they'll be like, oh, like your eyes are spaced a little farther apart and you have an interesting face shape, but it gives you like this ethereal, almost otherworldly look. And if you like, you could use that to your advantage. And it's like something that obviously they could have been made fun of for, but they were confident enough to try out for America's Next Top Model. So um, it's like that energy. But it's like the more that this lover stands in their authenticity, the more that they're given by the divine, or the more that they're recognized. But again, like that's the whole point. That's the thing that makes us different is the thing that makes us special. And the thing that makes us special is what the divine has placed within us. That is for us to do whatever with. And to not sacrifice that is to continuously reap something. This is an ideal candidate. And like the Nine of Swords in this deck, the Nine of Swords, Mars and Gemini. I mean, Mars is an Aquarius about to enter Pisces, but this is a card that's been coming out quite a bit. We saw the Nine of Swords in the before tarot and the after tarot when I was looking to clarify Mars and the Venus Mars conjunction. In the before tarot, we saw the night terror creature come. No, in the before tarot, we saw the swords as bloodied. In the after tarot, we saw the person in the bed ready when the night creature came to haunt them in their dreams. They weren't like prey to their anxieties or something like that. And then in this card again, we have the one who illuminates from the other side, who looks like a maybe younger pugilist, but she gives vibes of the pugilist, which is the Nine of Wands. But there's some kind of light that's provided. This card is so interesting to me. for context, because I believe it to be beneficial, I'll show you the Nine of Swords in the Vitruvian edition. Now, the Nine of Swords actually came out as one of the last things that Aquarius season was gifting us or reminding us to be mindful of. Here it is. Excuse me, not too far from the bottom of the deck. The queens in this deck are interesting. Not all of them. So the ebony shield, the ivory shield, I guess it's ebony and ivory. The ivory shield in the Vitruvian edition in particular is my like BTFU, don't go past this point card for whatever reason. The ebony shield is my card of the temptress. She is the one who will test someone's morals, integrity, commitment. She will offer something besides what the goal or the point or besides what we communicate. And I feel like more often than not, it's kind of like it's like a test. Like that apple, I'll put her face down. That apple, this is basically like the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But it's not won by the phoenix. It's almost like taken, or I don't know how to say it. It's like it is, but it isn't. And so I would almost call it a bad fruit, but it's like it's a fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but like let's say it's just like the knowledge of evil. Or it is knowledge, but it's knowledge that is not helpful to any. It's almost like it's possible to get a knowledge overload and to not have the context or the capacity to properly digest the information or to turn it over into wisdom. And so it's almost like, imagine if someone were to like tell you every bad thing that's ever going to happen to you, but they never told you any of the good things. So all you have of your knowing of your future is pain, misery, heartbreak, upset, and disappointment. No, I'm not saying that. I mean, I guess it's like I am, but I'm not, but I am, but I'm not. Saying that that's what you are. But it's like it's almost that energy, or it's just like we may not have yet the capacity to really do anything with that information. So it might actually be more detrimental or harmful than it is helpful or beneficial. But besides that, she is the one that offers us something. So, like, let's say that we have a thing where we want to put something good out into the world. She's the one that would come in and offer us, her energy is the one that would come in and offer us a lot of money to do something like shady and terrible. But it's a lot of money. Or it's like the thing that we most desire, but we have to do something not great to do it. And the Queen of Pentacles being cardinal earth, being Capricorn, is kind of a little devil energy. But from her, I feel like the point is to not take it. Like the point is to say no, to double down on that which you hold in high regard or dear or precious, to bet on you rather than take the easy way out, because like that's the type of thing that she guards. It is for those of the utmost character, because absolute power corrupts absolutely, and because opportunity makes a thief, and because It's like, well, if you didn't want someone to do something terrible, then you shouldn't have put yourself in a position for something terrible to have been done to you, more so than like just not doing terrible things. You know what I mean? It's like a victim blaming type thing. Like, well, where were you at? Did you leave it unattended? Like, yes, we should be knowledgeable of the world that we live in. Yes, I guess to a certain degree, carelessness and negligence is to invite whatever, but at the same time, there are plenty of times where you can leave something or forget something somewhere and it gets turned in to the lost and found, or people just leave it so you can come back and find it. Anyway, she is a tester of character, and she does it by offering something. And she is, we have the ferryman who is also coming out a lot, especially in these decks lately with that haunt. They're on the two sides of the haunt. So I guess maybe like you can move forward or you can take the bait and see where it leads. I don't know. But this is the haunt and the Vitruvian edition. Like you do still see that same doorway passageway in the back, but there is no illumination. There is no light. It's like it becomes a lot harder, or the energy here is that it's a lot harder to see through the things that the mind will generate. Now, oh, never mind. I was going to say that I don't see as much the astrological symbols, but you actually get to see more. It looks like of them in the Vitruvian edition or in the Revelations edition. So you see it all up front instead of it being something that she's like sitting on top of. Also, that's giving me the Seeker. Like all of those archways beyond archways. And this checkered pattern of the Vitruvian edition also gives me like optical illusion energy. It's like, when you're in a room that's an optical illusion, um, it uses the lines and the shading and the spacing on the patterning on the floor and your perspective, the perspective that you're viewing it from, to make like the object in the back look a lot larger than the object in front. But when you put them side by side, it's like a complete flip of what you thought it would be. Like that same optical illusion checkerboard pattern isn't here. And it feels like it's at least here in part because of the person on the other side, because of that light that's illuminating things. Now, what's interesting is, again, we have the Archangel. Ooh, and then there's the Keeper. Of course, it's the Keeper. There's the Keeper. We have the Archangel of Mysteries here, who lies beyond the Ebony Shield. The Archangel of Mysteries sits in the seat of the King, whereas the Ebony Shield sits in the seat of the Queen. The shields protect the archangels, but I feel like protect is an interesting word. The shields are the shield of the archangels. There you go. We'll just say it that way. I feel like archangel energies are capable of protecting themselves. You know what I mean? But anyway. This is the divine feeling like a certain type of vision by the end of this, especially. But this is the divine feeling like a certain vision or a certain energy is safe in the hands of a person. So this could be a time of um, like divine revelations or like a lot of big ideas coming to the forefront, being developed, gaining traction, maybe being funded, more heavily researched, coming to market. And it's like the idea has to find a vessel. It's like, any artist who's like, it just came to me type energy. But because the bottom of the deck is coming out with the vibe that it's coming out with, it's like it's important that it's not just anybody. And I don't know, for like, it could be that it's something that is so far out, or it's something that's so advanced, or it's something that's so left field that it's going to require a lot of time, energy, effort, resources, connections, whatever. And it may require more than some are willing to give, because to take an idea from thought to thing, your tolerance for rejection might have to be high. Your ability to be patient and not need immediate payout or immediate gratification or immediate validation, because sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes there's a lot of no's before you get a yes. Sometimes it's a lot of trial and error. Sometimes you think you're ready, but then something falls apart, or then things shift up or change in a way, or there's a new breakthrough that can make your process a lot smoother. But, maybe there's certain losses. Like, you also have to be comfortable with loss. There's a lot that's actually required, I guess, in the strength of character in ways that I've never necessarily thought about, but in ways that are very obvious, right? So for the one who is so rejection avoidant that they never put themselves out there, or they never communicate the idea, or after the first, second, or third time of, like, after the first, second, or third no, they quit and give up forever. That's an idea that would die there. The starborn would remain unborn in the care of someone like that, unless, again, it's an immediate hit. But because the grotesque is here, it feels like the idea may itself be something that is as unique as the mind or the heart or the hands that it finds itself in the care of. And this is like, by the end of it, it's real trailblaze of energy. Because not only is it someone who is capable of walking away from what they may be comfortable with, but it's someone who's able to do it at speed with the Eight of Wands. We also have Pisces Sagittarius energy here. Saturn in Pisces, Mercury in Sagittarius. So that's a Saturn Mercury square on the masculine and feminine expression, internal and external expression of Jupiter, which is interesting because Saturn is an energy that a lot of times seems to be at least at odds with Jupiter. But it feels like, according to divine construction, my puny human understanding or whatever, it seems that in the context of divine construction, Saturn and Jupiter would actually be extremely good, like, complements and counterparts, because Saturn would provide the structure that Jupiter needs to safely, comfortably expand. Because if Jupiter expands too quickly without a structure or support, it could collapse under its own weight. Or it can starve, because there's too many mouths and not enough food. And then, of course, Saturn without Jupiter is the opposite. It can tend to stagnation, um, decay. They are like, again, it's just like, it feels like they're really, really good counterparts. Or it's like there would be nothing for Saturn to do if things didn't grow. It's almost like Saturn would reach a completion and then just again it would stagnate. Because it's like, here's this what cubic foot or a cubic yard of whatever. And then it's like Saturn as a planet is pretty old. Saturn as an energy, it's potentially as it's going to live as long as creation itself. So it needs, you know, and Jupiter gives it that, like here. And it's this again, it feels like from a greater level, they're actually like very, very, very good complements for each other. And then, of course, Mercury is like right up Jupiter's alley. But it's almost like maybe not in as much of a way as like supporting. It's almost like Saturn supports Jupiter from the bottom, and Mercury would support Jupiter either from the sides or from the top. Like Mercury would be like, "Hey Jupiter, I heard about this. Hey Jupiter, I heard about that." And Jupiter's like, "Oh, oh," and it's like it becomes these almost like environmental external stimuli for Jupiter to like latch onto. Not that Jupiter would necessarily need it again, because it would naturally expand, but it's like now you have something over here that draws it that way. So great for the expanding of expansion, but not great for the structure and support of expansion. Mercury would quicken Jupiter to collapse under its own weight if it didn't have the support. Now, the only thing that I feel like is kind of evasive is apocalypses. Like everything else, I can see where it comes in. Also, like these cards are rough. We get the Five of Cups, the Nine of Swords, the Eight of Cups, until we put the Eight of Wands on the table. But still, it's not easy work. But again, that's the thing about the grotesque in this deck. It's the very thing that makes us special, that makes us unique, is what might separate us from others. And depending on our experience, it may make sense for us to choose to just fit in and be like everyone else. But how would we receive the things that we truly desire or the things that are truly meant for us? Like imagine living someone else's life, but then it's like, well, you get their challenges and their rewards. And maybe their challenges aren't challenging for you, or maybe their challenges are impossible for you. But it's like the things that you would reap as rewards may not even be things that you want. And because they're not things that you actually want, it's easy for there to be like a lack of fulfillment. And then it's like, well, I'm doing all this work, or I'm trying so hard to be like this or be like that, and my reward, like I don't even want. So what am I working for? Is that Eve 2? I didn't actually watch Eve 2. But was that like shine bright, shine far, be a star? It's like if you tell someone that you love the color green because green is everyone else's favorite color and you want to fit in, but you actually like really love the color purple. um, but like since you say you love green, like everything you have is green. And then you go to the store or you look outside of your green town and you see the purple stuff and you're like, man, I really want that purple stuff, but I gotta get green because everything is green. And then it's like if you were to tell people that you like purple, they would be like, okay. Then like why do you have all this green stuff if you really like purple? You're like, well, I was trying to fit in. It's like, well, we like genuinely love the color green. That's why we all have green. If you genuinely love purple, you should get purple. And we're not going to make you feel bad because your favorite color is a different color than our favorite color, right? Maybe sometimes it is a genuine truth for a mass of people or the few people or the people that you attract. I don't know. But this is like individual. This is for you. The Five of Cups already said this is an individual. And the keeper behind the Archangel of Mysteries. Oh, this is the angel who illuminates the shadow. You see that angel who illuminates the shadow? And then the womb came out with the shadow. So this would be an angel who illuminates the womb. But again, it feels like this womb is attached to a person. But this womb is a womb that offers things rather than receives things. And the keeper is the spirit and petition of spirit. The keeper is the fool who has gone from the magician to the world, who has conquered self, who she split the septenaries up. This is the Vitruvian Book of Maps, but it's similar enough. I'm trying to find the septenaries. The first septenary is integrate the self. The second septenary is integrate the cosmos. The third septenary is integrate the divine. And the keeper is the one who has integrated the self, the cosmos, and the divine. That could be the self, the world, and the divine. Like, excuse me, this is who I am. This is the world that I live in. And this is the divine that governs all of it through me, through the world, and as its own simultaneously, sometimes separate entity. Or it's like sometimes it has a will and autonomy of its own, even though it is found both in the self and in the environment outside of the self. Oops. The keeper done did all that. And the keeper has like the Merkaba there, and then these things out here, and we see the three. Well, it's the two ravens, but the should be three pigeons or whatever. Or maybe it's just the two ravens and that third dove. Let's look at the bottoms. So we have the shapeshifter at the bottom of the self. The shapeshifter is interesting. It's almost giving me Loki energy when like Loki shape shifted into a female horse and then got pregnant and had to stay as a female horse, I guess, until he gave birth. Or I guess the shapeshifter could also be this shadow functionality of the womb, or this feature, this function or truth of the womb that we wouldn't associate with the womb because of how we view the womb. Now, this is a continuation or another way of reading or an alternate version of the Leap Day spread where we use the Leap Day to justify attempting to encroach upon the territory of the high priestess, to delve deeper into the veil, if you will, I guess. And so it's not surprising to come upon energies that are to be read or interpreted in ways other than what we would commonly believe them to be. Because again, there is at least sometimes a difference between the truth of what something is and the truth of what something has come to be in the world or in a world that sees it, utilizes it, and is encouraged to view it from a limited number of perspectives, or just in our limited capacity as human beings. Sometimes the first thing that is associated with something is what it becomes. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Like sometimes it'll be like Listerine, I think, was supposed to be like a cleaning product, but then it wasn't selling as a cleaning product, and halitosis became a thing, and so then they marketed it as mouthwash. Or how there's like, is it like diabetic medication? It's like medication that's supposed to be for diabetics, but people end up using it as like a fat burning pill or something like that. Like sometimes we do know, but we just use it for other purposes. But that other use can become so common that we forget what the truth of it actually at least was meant to be. Now, the bottom of this one, we have the fault line. The shapeshifter and the fault line is interesting because it feels like the shapeshifter would be able to fill the cracks. That's what it feels like. The shapeshifter would be able to fill the cracks in that fault line. Almost like a skeleton key, I guess. I don't know how skeleton keys work. So in Patrick mind, it's more like what I know of of a locking mechanism is that there are cylinders or whatever that when they reach a certain position, they like unlock something. And so the shapeshifter would be this almost putty like material that can go in and then individually raise until every cylinder is in position and it unlocks. Like that's how it feels the fault line. It's through its own flexibility while maintaining a sense of self. And I think that's another, like the Wizards of Earthsea. I think the Wizards of Earthsea. Okay, it's also Brave. Disney's Brave. There are a few things that have come across my uh, experience where it's possible to shapeshift and to forget your identity. In Earthsea, it's like, there are some wizards who shapeshifted into dolphins and then forgot what it was like to be human, or the identity of dolphin consumed them. So that's their new shape. And in Brave, someone got turned. Was it the mother that got turned into the bear? I think somebody else got turned into a bear too, though. And they got stuck. And maybe that's the gift of this mutable energy, at least in. Oh, Gemini is here too. Mars in Gemini, Saturn in Pisces, Mercury in Sagittarius, Moon in Taurus, Mars in Scorpio. So we have a Taurus Scorpio opposition between the Moon and Mars. And then we have a T square between Saturn, Mercury, and Mars. So Virgo would be the missing square for this mutable square. Mutable is the angel in this deck. Bottom of the items is the kiss. It's always the kiss. And then again, there's the contact, or then there's the hand holding that we also saw yesterday. Sort of like implied, especially in the Ten of Cups. The kiss just feels like it's like that perfect fit. Maybe I'll read the shapeshifter. It's also interesting that shapeshifter is number 15. This is the trickster, the elusive, the formless. Oh, not the formless again. We got the formless again, not the formies. How do you give birth to something that is formless? Or how do you um, how do you capture in form something that is formless without it losing all of the properties or what makes it special as being something formless? Like, can you contain something formless within form without sacrificing its formlessness? Maybe that's why this womb has to like reach out in a different way, has to almost take on properties of the masculine standard equivalent. I don't know. Because it's like, the yin yang. The shadow of the moon would be like the black dot in the white half of yin yang, or the white dot in the black half. It's that energy. This is the womb doing that, though, without sacrificing or compromising its identity of being a womb. There's almost maybe it's the shapeshifter in the fault line. There's almost something of Dwarven magic here. Now, Dwarven magic is because I play God of War Ragnarok. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. If you haven't gotten past whatever point in God of War Ragnarok, then I've shared the clip before. But the secret to Dwarven magic is that Dwarven magic depends on the nature of something more so than the shape or the form that it manifests in. So, what is something? Um, it's like using a key to unlock somebody's cell phone, but the magic is on the nature of the key to unlock something. So even though like you can't tap a key to a phone and unlock it, in Dwarven magic, you can, because you're using the nature of the key to unlock. So even if it's physically incompatible, it's still able to do what its nature allows it to do. Now, what's interesting though is you see, I feel like it's a little bit like chicken or the egg, because you come across someone whose name is their nature. If that makes sense. So I guess like, was their nature, and that's what gave them that name? Or did they take on that nature because that's the name that they were given? Because they do something that you wouldn't expect for them to do. But again, it's like, well, it's Dwarven magic. It's the nature of the thing, not the form that it takes. And I almost wonder if that's this nectar desert. I guess it could be what, agave? Does agave come from cactuses? I don't know. From succulents. Um, It's almost like it's the nature that attracts some subtle thing to whoever this lover is, more so than the form of it. It's very like not poly, it's very like pan, demi. It's like, it's the person. It's all about connection more so than gender, genitals type energy. The shapeshifter has a love of theater, games, and trickery. Its energy appears as one thing only to reveal a more complex story below the surface. The shapeshifter is within all of us to some degree. It is the side of ourselves that is slippery, non-committal, and experimental, and longs to dismiss the rules. We need its energy to adapt to the ever changing landscape of our existence. When the shapeshifter card appears, it's important to imagine you are looking at life through a kaleidoscope rather than a single focused lens. At any moment, the scene may shift, revealing a more enchanting vision than you imagined. Be wary, though, as the allure of the kaleidoscope can leave you exhausted and yearning for solid ground. Dancing long term with the shapeshifter requires a central pillar of integrity that links us back to our center. And that was the thing about this lover. No, that was the thing about the lover and the grotesque. It was that integrity. That's an integrity that can resist anything that the ebony shield would offer it. There is nothing that the ebony shield can offer this grotesque. Not to the grotesque that loves and accepts themselves and that won't compromise themselves in those ways. And again, she was the one that was before the hunt and the Vitruvian edition, and on the other side of that was the ferryman getting to calmer waters, or it's more so that like universal Mercury, which is that higher sight. And I guess that's a thing. It's like when you can tell that something or someone, more so something, because I'm feeling more of like an advertisement vibe or like a sales thing. You can tell when like something is meant to play on insecurities, or it's why like a lot of phishing attempts are so successful, is because they create a sense of urgency. And that urgency and the feeling that like we need to make a decision now and there's not a lot of time, we become a lot easier to manipulate, or we try to fast track rational judgment. Sometimes we do have to make decisions on the fly, and sometimes it is for us to use that express judgment. uh, I want to say paradigm, but also paradox. Parallax, is that a word? An express judgment like rubric. But if we have the luxury of time, then we can take our time and make the decision. We can gather more information. We can sleep on it. We can weigh our options. We can really think, is this something that I want? Or do I want to like at least peruse other options before I commit to whatever? Now we don't have to talk about people as if they're vehicles or confections at a bakery. But in that sense of urgency, and especially since the Fisher creates the sense of urgency, it's almost like they have the advantage because they can almost change the rules whenever they want. That's one of the tactics, of course. But again, something about where was it? We need its energy to adapt to the ever changing landscape of our existence. And again, it feels like the shapeshifter is able to fill the cracks in this fault line. Now, that would be the shapeshifter serving as a bridge, right? Because in the fault line, we see these two like separate uh, tectonic plates, land masses, whatever. If the shapeshifter were to come in and feel this, something could easily cross from one side to the other. And again, we have the divine looking for ways to bring things about. With the starborn, the threshold on the gem, particularly the gem, we can see it's something that the divine holds in high value. And we can see that it's something that is yet unborn. But with the threshold, it's like with this threshold, it sits or stands as far as it can go without that bridge to help it cross or connect. It's also interesting that we see like two legs and feet here when they're like two hands here under it on two separate cards. Do we have two of anything else? Two ears, two eyes, two noses. Some of us. Maybe not midi, but I'm sure somebody. Two nostrils. There you go. This apocalypse is I'm also gonna. I guess apocalypses can be, especially when it comes to like star power, or not even star power. It's the potential of this idea to change the world. And maybe that's another reason why it's important because maybe the idea has the power to impact the world that's created, right? Again, imagine if our first foray, or imagine if like nuclear fission and fusion or whatever was known for like producing energy rather than it being known for being a weapon. And again, I don't know if nuclear power plants came before nuclear weapons or not, but the thing that we're most cognizant and aware of, and I guess even with power plants, like there's some precautions that need to be taken. Um, but like more often than not, we hear about it in terms of warfare, and it's because we've seen the dangers of it. Now, it's not to say that we should live in ignorance, but at the same time, I feel like there are certain things that we don't necessarily like. I don't want to say that there are certain things that we don't necessarily need to know, but it's at the same like we can know that something can be used for not great, or we can know that something can be used to accomplish not great ends without having to do it. You know what I mean? We can be aware of the dangers of something and not have to like play out worst case scenario in real life to see how bad it can really get. You know what I mean? But maybe it is that like it's important. Like the first impression is important, or the first applications are going to be important, and it may be because of the frontiers or the avenues that it opens up. Like there are some things that we've already done, right? We can find new and better ways to do what it is that we're already doing, or we can really like, wow, this opens up a whole new realm of possibilities. You know what I mean? But it's almost like if it comes in as a substitution, maybe that's all it can ever be. And it's here to be its own thing. We already see that with the grotesque. That's why the Six of Pentacles works. So the Six of Pentacles is also a card of reciprocity, but we already got that feeling when it was like, whatever this starborn is, it's just as unique as the lover that carries it. And so again, maybe that's just like if we are someone who gives in to conformity and the pressures of whatever, I'm trying to, if we're someone that conforms because of pressure, and there are many reasons to conform, or sometimes like you just fit in. I mean, I don't like, sometimes your interests just align. Like green is your favorite color, green is everyone else's favorite color. Oh my gosh, right? And that's not necessarily people being forced or pressured to like the color green because other people do. Now, if everyone in the world's favorite color was green, if we didn't know any better, maybe we wouldn't think that it's weird, but a lot of us have probably met people with different favorite colors. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's different. It's rarely probably something to like actually get upset over. And maybe that's the point. Like these are reconcilable differences. Reconcilable difference is what makes us each unique, makes us each special, and what gives us the ability to create or to live in, to build together a world that is thriving, that is a celebration of many, and maybe even all. What was I about to do? Read Apocalypse. Maybe that's what Apocalypse is. It's just like the potential for this thing to like change the world, whatever this thing is. Removing the veil of deception, oof, is Apocalypse. And then we have Eros before that. Apocalypse indicates a particularly painful time, one that unfolds when two disparate dynamics occur simultaneously, pulling the psyche in seemingly opposing directions. The first is a lifting of the veil. This means truths that have been kept in the dark are revealed, seen, and unearthed. No matter how relieving it is to witness them come into the light, an element of despair and grief follows. The second dynamic is the regeneration that comes from the wreckage of the revealed truth. The old narrative breaks and a new story forms. Apocalypse's energy is similar to a forest fire's, excuse me, devastation for the sake of regeneration. The veil lifts and we see who and what has been hiding. From the nakedness of the truth, a child is born. Have faith in the process. Hold on to your center. That is the only way. So, there again, we see the center being important just as it was to the shapeshifter. Now, the lifting of the veil is interesting when we have the offering that comes after that. I feel like this was all. How did I do it? I think I just had an extra card. Excuse me. Like, this doesn't necessarily. Like, it feels like it reads as a lot smoother and easier than the cards make it seem. Because, again, it's some heavy cards. Five of Cups, Nine of Swords, Eight of Cups. But this apocalypse and the offering and arrows, it almost feels like it's an extension of truth. And it's this question of like, what happens when two truths meet? Now, Apocalypse said um, despair and whatever else, because they're seemingly opposite truths. They're truths that oppose each other. But what happens when even opposing truths can come together? Does it reveal a greater, grander, more cosmic truth, more central to the mechanism of the creation of the divine? Or does it birth a completely new truth into the world? I think it's the King of Diamonds that came out in the Diceology, a bell that brings the physical and intangible into harmony as it chimes out into the universe or pulses out into the universe, collision or cohesion. Are the physical and intangible going to align, or are they going to tear each other apart? Because what is trying to manifest from the intangible, not only is there space that's currently being occupied in the physical, but neither side is seceding, or neither side is like giving way to the other. The physical refuses to make space or room for the spiritual that is like pushing to be manifested, but the spiritual also isn't receding. And so it just continues to push. And then maybe this fault line is something that is created as both sides crumble. It's a result of that pressure of these things coming together. Eventually, like something has to give, something breaks. And maybe that's, sometimes when the divine is trying to bless us or the divine is trying to give us the things that we say we want, but we don't make room for it. And so I don't know, it is what it is. Excuse me. Today is a very special Pisces' birthday. A Pisces that I have never met, but one that is obviously very dear to my heart. Tomorrow is a few special Pisces' birthdays. And then, is it the 3rd? Or is it the 5th? It's another special Pisces on the 4th. Another special Pisces on the 5th. The 10th, the 18th, the 20th. Maybe the 12th? And the 14th? Ooh. So we have Gemini and Saturn and Leo. The Lovers and the Contender. Now, we saw this contender yesterday in the Vitruvian edition. But, because I think this is our crown princess right there. In the Revelations edition, at least this is the vibe that I'm picking up. That's the princess, or that's the woman, the feminine, competing for the crown as a woman, rather than her competing for the crown disguised as a male, because only males are allowed to compete. So it's almost like ultimately the outcome is the same, but today she refused to hide who she is. That's the energy of the grotesque. That's the energy of the grotesque. With that, with the giver, the 6 of Pentacles, in her authenticity, not hiding or shielding or pretending, not compromising in ways that she shouldn't compromise. Because that ebony shield, if there's any way that we'll compromise, the ebony shield can get us to compromise. And then it can turn into one of those, but like, oh no, I never would have done it if I had known this. Like, that's not who I am. That's not my character. But it's like, you say, or we may say sometimes that it's not who we are, but was it not us that did whatever? Not to say that we can't be led out of our character, but at the end of the day, like, were we or were we not the ones who did whatever? I love that. This is like Mulan. If Mulan just like went to war as Mulan instead of Ping or whatever her name was. Imagine unapologetically you. But again, it's almost like that's the benefit or the perk of being in one's authenticity. Regardless of the challenge, because then at least you know, like, whatever you get or whatever reward, like, or whatever reward you receive or whatever you get, whatever you manifest from that place of authenticity, you are actually going to like and enjoy, because you're not doing it as someone else. Like, please, divine, give me the thing that everyone else has so that I can fit in. Let me be able to be this other person, and then to feel like there is no fulfillment if the disparity is extreme is not completely unexpected. We don't do ourselves favors, but again, it isn't necessarily easy either. So it's a real catch-22. Bottom of the deck is the Seeker. I feel like we've seen that. Yeah, we saw the Seeker. Was it in this deck? It had to be in this deck. No, I think we saw the Seeker in the other deck too. Oh, hold up. I've never noticed this before. So, in the Initiate, I'm confused. The Initiate came out in the SKT Revelations, I'm pretty sure, edition, and I showed the Fox because the Coyote came out and then the Fox card was in the Animal Spirits. I think I used that deck when I used the Mystical Shaman Oracle cards. And maybe that's like when the Hunter was so focused on the Coyote. The Hunter was distracted. Like, that's Queen of Pentacles, almost the Ebony Shield energy. She'll distract us with something else. That, like, the mouse that was used to distract the Son of Wands, but the Son of Wands kept his eye on the Ace of Pentacles anyway. The Fox is back there. There you go. There's the Fox. You see the Fox? Now, the Fox is at the beginning of the journey. It's our friend, is our guide. It wakes up when we take that journey. It's the part of us, or the part of our discernment, that kicks up a notch when we become about that work. Because it's like, if we say that we're about that work, but we're not really about that work, the easy way out will look more like the work, because that's what we want to do. Not necessarily always, but it's like, do you want to make a buttload of money right now without having to do anything? Yeah, well, this is all you got to do. Or it's scammer energy that creates that sense of urgency. Fisher energy, when there is none. Not necessarily that, more so like you want money quick. They're like, yeah. Excuse me, just, do whatever. And I did show the picture of the Torii and the Japanese garden. I remember. This box is really like... Oh, okay. So in the Initiate card. I already shuffled the deck, so you'll have to use your memory or feel free to rewind the video, I guess. In the initiate, there is a chasm of understanding. Yeah, I did see this one because here's the seeker there. I knew it was different, but I didn't use this deck yesterday. So. Excuse me. Oh, look. So there's our Archangel of Mysteries. Behind the Archangel of Mysteries is the Initiate. This is the one that came out. And there's the Fox, the Guard, the angel that the divine assigns to us when we go on the part of the journey where we get to learn the divine. And sometimes the divine that we learn for ourselves may be a little different than the one that we hear about from others, or maybe different than the one that we read about. And then on the other side of that is the moon, is the necromancer. The Archangel of Mysteries, the moon, gateway of resurrection, angel who illuminates the shadow, and then spirit in search of experience. But here's that chasm that is like the fault line. We have to cross that chasm at some point too. This is so interesting though. Because I'm like, well, what does that read like? Do we become that shapeshifter to help others in our lives cross those chasms and encourage them along their journey in a way that is true and authentic to them? Do we empower them to, embrace themselves and to be vulnerable and to see through, peer through, gaze through veils of deception? Oh, wow. I didn't necessarily mean to pull all this, but here it is. The Seeker, the Chariot, and the Warrior. Now, we saw the Chariot at the bottom of the deck before, did we not? No, we saw the Warrior. It was the Destroyer, the Warrior, the Devil, and the Outlaw. But the Chariot came out as one of the bonus cards, and it mentioned having the knowledge, but maybe not necessarily knowing the application for it. That chariot the shield of that chariot hid sacred treasures. Now, this chariot doesn't have a shield. It's the crest of the chariot rather than a shield that the charioteer carries in front of them. And it's interesting because I don't think we had any cardinal energy in those cards. It was the Taurus Scorpio axis, and then Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius. There was no cardinal energy, which is interesting in and of itself. I always find it interesting, I guess, when a message or a feeling of, well, does the divine trust us to impart something to us rather than us and our faith in the divine? Because the divine has to have faith in us too. But the faith that the divine has in us, it's like the divine has the advantage of omniscience and knowing us, What's also interesting is on this jug, I don't know if this is a talisman with the evil eye on it or if this is a jug with the evil eye on it, but she is protected in her self-expression. and her authentic self-expression. She is a woman who is competing for the crown, not disguised as a man. And so, of course, it's to invite certain judgments of what her place is and who should rule and who shouldn't. Um, but with that talisman, it's both an acknowledgement of it and a protection. Oh, snap, I never noticed that. I think in the background, we see the three wise men from the politic seeking the prophecy. Or maybe they've already sought the prophecy and they're the ones who crown whoever wins. You see in the doorway? I could be wrong, but that's what it's looking like. Where my phone at? I'm gonna use the magnifier. She put so much detail into these cards. Let's see. Maybe not. I can't tell. Oh, that's weird. It's so textured. Like zooming in on the texture is like awkward. Oops. So that's what's in there. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's not giving our three wise men, or maybe it's just the throne. I don't know. And I don't have the Vitruvian. Excuse me. I don't have the Revelations book of maps to try to find out. But I guess it's not. That is a parallel between these two cards, because we see this in the back here, but also another layer to this. We have the masculine, I'm assuming, facing away from us and the feminine facing us. Usually it would be like the man protects the woman. And so the feminine would be turned away and the masculine would be sort of shown. But besides that, we also have this lover's card. So there's something else that is like going on between them. Here's a representation of masculine and feminine. Feminine, phoenix, masculine, dragon. Here we see an angel. Is that an angel with a flaming sword? With the snake coiled around the tree with the single born fruit of the tree of life on it. There you go. Yep. Looks like wavy flaming sword to me. And the Merkaba on the scroll in his hand. We saw the Merkaba on the keeper. That was at the bottom of the deck behind the Archangel of Mysteries. Wow, interesting. Whatever that is, that's what that was. Ba-doo boo boo. Boo boo boo. Now, I'm not going to shuffle this deck since I didn't really use it. Since I used it more for illustration and I didn't like pull any of the cards, I'll just put them back into the deck. Our final archetype, now I got to put them back in reverse. I like the archetype of person to be at the top. So our final archetype of place, no, of thing, sorry. Oh gosh, the kiss came out face up and a whole bunch of cards came out face down. What is it? It all started with the kiss. How did it end up like this? I don't know. What's that song? Do 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 do. Mr. Brightside? Now we got one card that flipped over and not a crap ton that's like face down on the table, and it's the flame. Number 51. Look at that flame. It's the light in the dark. Bottom of the deck is the vision. Ooh, oh, snap. The vision and the flame almost implies that like no matter how small the light, it is seen. It's very much that like in a room that's complete dark, a single candle can illuminate the whole room type energy. I don't know why I said it like that. I mean, I guess I said it like that because I've heard it so often. Because of the cliche. That's why I said it like that. Doesn't make it untrue. But the forest surrounds this flame, the mountain is on top, and the moon above that, all in this vision. Like I'm almost getting this as the flame in here. There's been a lot of energies of like catching the attention of the divine in some way. I don't know if it's the completion of some work. I don't know what. I mean, how would I know? And I'm not gonna ask for any more clarification because these are general and it's probably gonna be different for everyone that it resonates for. And if it resonates, then like it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It's one like this, it feels like this kind of recognition again, like that would be a being good for goodness sake type of recognition rather than a like, I'm going to be good so I can get presents on Christmas from Santa. Um, so again, it's like not one of those, well, like, well, what can I do to be recognized type because it's going to be different. Like literally the Five of Cups authenticity. There's something within you that you nurtured and cared for. And that catches the eye of the divine. Again, that was why the giver was right there, giving. I saw the desert. Oh snap! We got apocalypsis again. Desert at the bottom of the deck. Apocalypsis, the storm, and gnosis. Wow. 74, the storm, which is 67. No, 47. Oh, 74, 47. Wow. Right? LXXIV 74. XL is 40 VII. 7447. Apocalypsis, the storm, and the gnosis. Now, apocalypsis mentions the forest fire, right? It mentioned the forest fire that brings nutrients back to the soil. The storm can be the cause of that forest fire if it's not like some person. And then after that, we come into gnosis, which is 75, which is the next step. We see something almost like a Merkaba on this gnosis, but not quite. So I don't know if that's like the beginnings of, I don't, like I've Googled the Merkaba before. What does it mean to Patrick in particular? Us doing whatever we're supposed to be doing, or us in a space of alignment with the divine that comes through an alignment with the self. Because it's almost like different things resonate as true for different people. So there are things that I'm not going to be able to necessarily understand because they don't resonate as true for me and with me. Um, but it's almost like to grow so close to the divine, but to not have an appreciation for its creation. and you are its creation. We are its creation. The world is its creation, and the people in it are the creation of the divine. And it's, I don't have to Patrick this moment up. It's fine. Especially like, again, back to the community post that I made earlier, like the world that I want to live in is a world that is full of people who are happy and who are fulfilled. And for us to get from the world that we're in to that world, at least for me, within me, there's some stuff that needs to happen, that needed to happen, and some stuff that still needs to happen, I'm sure. So whenever I see, especially like, it's honestly anybody, but it's even more wild because like my journey buddy, like we've been journeying together. So I've gotten, it's like when you see somebody every day, you see the gradual changes in them. So your brain gets to connect all the dots along the way. It's not like the last time I saw you, you were a little baby and now you're a full grown adult. Like the disconnect, the disparity in the brain is extreme. But to like see people doing the work who can take that to their friends and family, who then in times of challenge and difficulty get to step up, or who get to initiate conversations and to like really break generational patterns that lead into like healthier whatever. Like I live for that. I love it. And especially when the like when it's appreciated and the appreciation is communicated. And I got to witness that today. And I was like, oh my gosh. Even now I'm like a little giddy. It's fine. We'll calm down. But I live for that. What are we talking about? Apocalypse is the storm. Gnosis, bottom of the deck is the desert. We already saw that. Well, I guess Gnosis is just what comes after the storm. The apocalypses and the storm are sitting in the same place for me because the storm causes apocalypses. But the storm is also generated by apocalypses. So it's like, on one hand, it is time for a veil to be removed or lifted for whatever reason. The storm happens to clear out whatever, and then we sit in that apocalypse, or then we experience that apocalypse. So it's almost like it's like it's administered here, and then it's felt here. In between when it's administered and when the effect kicks in, there's the storm. And then we emerge from the other side with some kind of increased knowing or with some further clarity. I mean, there's the potential, but since I'm going to read it, since that's how the cards came out, that's how I'm going to say it. And for those that it resonates with, it'll resonate with them. I don't have to make it about anything besides what the cards came out as. You know what I mean? Because at this point, I just have to trust that discernment and intuition is a thing that we all have. Cool. Ooh, now we have the shaman. The shaman was mentioned in the card that came out yesterday. I don't remember what card it was, but I remember that it mentioned the shaman. Bottom of the deck is the siren. It's kind of in reverse, but these are round. 18 and 16. The siren, the shaman. The siren is an interesting energy to me. I did a pick a card one time, and the siren felt like an irresistible call that came from within us. Maybe especially with the way that the narrative has been shifting and shifting in a way of like healing, raising your vibration and frequency has become more mainstream. Shadow work has become more mainstream. Inner child work, even like narcissists, gaslighting, mental health being more mainstream in way of like the stigma against, I mean, in different isolated or in different localized communities, it can be different, but generally more and more and more, we're at least having conversations about like going to counseling or actually addressing mental concerns more and more. When we see things and there is a mental concern underlying factor, it's like we can address it in terms of like, and not just sweep it under the rug or treat it as if it's some kind of anomaly or something that like doesn't happen or a one-off. Part of that is, and with everything that's transpired in the world globally, I had it and then I lost it. Basically, we're in this space where not only are we seeking the truth, we're also seeking support. But like true support, we're also becoming aware of certain tactics, especially when it comes to manipulation. And we're being encouraged to pursue that which truly aligns with us, but also at the same time to do the work so that we actually align with receiving, or so that we have the capacity to receive what it is that we're wanting or asking for, rather than like we become the narcissists and the gaslighters because we still can't accept or receive that something is what it is. You know what I mean? Like imagine gaslighting someone into thinking that they're a terrible person because we can't accept love, genuine love. And it's like, oh well, you can't really like what did you do? You can't really like nobody is this whatever. Or maybe we gaslight ourselves into thinking that like we're not worthy or deserving of it. And it's almost like when the board changes, if the internal structure doesn't support receiving, we become the source of whatever that toxicity was in the atmosphere. And I say in the atmosphere because it could be different for different people. But now it's like we project it to receive it or project it on ourselves when things work out for the better, because maybe something that someone said to us, we never really, maybe it worked its way into our minds, our hearts, and our narrative and view of self in a way where we believed it to be true. And maybe it was easier to see it as false when that person was there telling it to us, even though we bought into it. But when they're gone, it's like it lingers. It leaves something behind, a root, a bad seed, because bad seeds came out yesterday. A bad seed that someone else watered, and now we keep it watered for them in their absence, in the face of everything that we actually desire. Why did I bring that up? Oh, there's the creator again. That's the archetype that came out yesterday. The creator and the king at the bottom. The shaman and the siren, because of that cool, because of the pool, because of the call. That's why I started talking about it. The siren. We've created, it's almost like we've magnetized ourselves in the collective to healthier, happier, more authentic, more honest by everything, by the conversations that we're having and by the things that we're starting to ask for and demand in terms of truth and transparency and things and stuff like that. And that siren call aligns with the thing that we've been collectively manifesting. But again, to stand in a place to receive it may require something, especially if the disparity is not insignificant. If the fault line is extra like chasmy or gaping, rather than it being like the fault line is so whatever that you don't even notice, It's like a crack in the sidewalk. You could step on it and you wouldn't fall into it. You could step on it and you wouldn't even trip over it because it's like it's so level. It's possible. Anyway, this was the alternative reading of Leap Day Energy. This is the way that I meant to do it. Instead of doing 1 1 2 2 3 3, it was supposed to be 1 3 2 2 3 1. But each gives whatever they give for who it resonates for or whatever. So I ended one of these with a Universe Has Your Back card yesterday. I don't feel like I need one today, but I will give you one of these because that King of Diamonds came out, or the energy of the King of Diamonds in that apocalypse. A bell that brings the physical and intangible into harmony as it pulses out into the universe. Collision or cohesion was one of the final cards the last time I used this deck. And again, that was the lifting of the veil of apocalypse. Two seemingly opposite things being true, but we also saw, and maybe that's another thing. Maybe it's like, how can you be an individual and part of the collective at the same time, or something like that? And it's like, it's very possible. Historically, there hasn't really been, maybe there hasn't been a lot of historical basis or context or application of it, because what motivated a lot of history was a dependency upon isolation, separation, and classes, hierarchies. You do this because I'm too good or whatever. I'm more deserving and worthy, all that, whatever. And that's another thing too. I think sometimes it goes back to that almost nuclear energy where our first impression of a thing can be so heavy, or we can see a certain application be so prevalent that we're convinced of a truth that isn't necessarily true. Or we become convinced that we don't want things that we actually do want because they're either misproperly handled, misproperly marketed, sold as bad, when it's all a part of the scheme to keep us from even seeking. But if our one basis for something is like, if you hate tomatoes and you don't want tomatoes in your garden, so you let tomatoes die, but that's the only plant that someone's seen you grow, they may think like, oh, well, gardening isn't successful. We can't grow our own food because look at that guy. He plants tomato seeds, or tomato seeds end up in his soil and they never grow. They never come to fruition. And it's like, but that's the point. You don't want tomatoes, so you're not going to promote the growth of tomatoes. It doesn't mean that gardening is ineffective. It doesn't mean that tomatoes are incapable of growing. It was intentionally, like the plot of land is intentionally designed for carrots and beans and things that aren't tomatoes. It's just like that a little bit. You know what I mean? But anyway, it's fine. We all come to our own truths. And and I guess like another thing, a little bit, it's because things have been what they have been, how do we as individuals learn to differentiate? Again, how do we learn to differentiate what is our truth versus what is a truth? What is our truth versus what is someone else's truth that they've told us? Or like, what is our truth versus what is something that we have witnessed that appears to be true because of the way that things have played out, especially under the manipulative shuffling of circumstance. But even outside of that, because we only see what we see. You know what I mean? Anyway, those were probably more questions for yesterday, because the grotesque and the giver, like the cards that came out, the energy that came out is someone who was true to themselves, who was authentic. And because of that, they look very, very appealing and very, very, because it's like, if you can love and honor and cherish and value yourself, and if you can commit and put in the dedication and the effort and the hard work to better yourself, like, Or even if you can be observed doing it to or for someone else, it builds confidence in your ability to take care of something that requires a lot of care. If we can be seen, or yeah, if we can be seen as negligent, it may not necessarily inspire confidence in our ability to care for things. And if it's something that needs a lot of care, and then it becomes one of those, like, we all have our own talents, gifts, skills, and abilities. Some of us are more patient and have more of a capacity for whatever than others. Some things are for us to do. And so, it's not personal, but you don't even like kids. So why would I ask you to babysit when there's someone who's completely free, has the time, is capable, and loves children? I don't want my kids to suffer, and I don't want you to suffer. But it's like, oh, but you didn't even ask me. It's like, anyway. We all have our own things, and it's not a bad thing. A shift in the wind, a leaf caught in an eddy, the birth of a new language, six of clubs, which is the six of wands, which is the champion that we saw yesterday. We saw in the contender, which I guess it's better that we saw the contender because it supports the message than it is that we saw the contender, because, or better, the contender than the champion, because we already know that in the champion it's a crown princess instead of a crown prince. But in the revelations in the contender, we get to see that the princess competed as a princess rather than competing as a prince in disguise. But there's the six of clubs under that, or at the bottom of the deck, taking the plunge into an ice cold tank, dissolution of the self, integration and separation, seven of spades. That energy, when I was first getting into the SKT, the archangel of healing came out with the ace of cups, and it was the energy of a spiritual sensory deprivation tank, which is the remedy for how do we differentiate what is our truth versus what is something that we treat as true. And it's in the spiritual self-deprivation tank. It's almost like, it's not as extreme as apocalypsis, pulling our psyche into opposing directions at the same time. I mean, it could be. In my mind, sensory deprivation tank has an air of peace and calmness to it, where you just like melt into it, and where you're just like carried by the buoyant forces of salty, salty water. But it's like, in that we get to see what is us and what is not us. What is something that we were raised on or raised to believe? What is something that in our adapting to life or in our adapting to our circumstances, ways that we change to better survive? What are some things that we heard from people that we view as successful, that were keys to their success, but don't maybe resonate for us? Or what are things that are us? What is our light? What are the things that we're good at? What is our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our shadows? What are our shortcomings? What are our actual shortcomings? And what are things that people told us are our shortcomings because of whatever? And that spiritual sensory depth, in the deprivation tank, spiritual sensory deprivation tank, where's self trying to fit in there? We find self through that, and we're able to get a complete picture of self, while also understanding, at least in part, while understanding what is external to us, and maybe deepening that understanding into like the sources of how or why we thought it was us and it isn't. Like, all of that is in this card of dissolution of the self, integration and separation. We integrate what is us and we separate it from what is not us. But it's taking the plunge into it. It's like going into it. Anyway, I hope you all have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path journey and what you find, even if it's someone to help validate your otherism. I don't want to. What is an acronym? Even if it's someone to help validate what makes you you, and to appreciate your uniqueness until you can learn to love it for yourself. And if you don't have someone to help you do that, I hope that you can learn to support yourself through that process. It's not always easy. Um, Anachronism, a thing belonging or appropriate to a period other than that in which it exists, especially a thing that is conspicuously old fashioned. Wow. Everything was as it would have appeared in centuries past, apart from one anachronism, a bright yellow construction crane. A thing belonging or appropriate to a period other than that in which it exists. So anachronism is like the Starbucks cup in whatever Game of Thrones. I don't even know the scene. All I know is that there was a Starbucks cup where it shouldn't be, or something like that. So is acronism a word? Because "and" is a a prefix on that, right? What is an antonym of anachronism? Something belonging to a particular period? What? Acronism? Oh, that's achronism. Achronism, lack or deficiency of time, absence of time. Boo. Anyway, all right, that's what I got. I hope you all already went through this reel. But again, I truly, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, in a very selfless, I'm being selfish. I want you to be happy so that I can be happy in peace. But also, I love like people being happy. I love good news. I love things working out for people. I love, you know what I mean? So part of it is selfish. Part of it is like not. And if it's selfish, it's okay because it benefits you. You know what I mean? It's like someone who's like, I want you to be successful so that you stop asking me for money. Is it selfish? Yes, but the other person wins. I don't know. Anyway, I'll catch y'all later. We're in March. We have, I think, the new moon Pisces is on the 10th, which is a special Pisces' birthday. And then on the 25th is the lunar eclipse. Oh, that's what I was going to ask about. Um, Mars is supposed to enter Pisces at some time, and then Venus is supposed to enter Pisces. I don't know if I'll do something. Maybe we'll pull some cards, especially since we read Aquarius and they were so interesting. Their conjunction in Aquarius and like how they move forward after. Maybe not. We'll just go with it. Maybe I'll like take a break because I don't need to go live every day. You know what I mean? Or maybe I'll be here. I don't know. Tune in and find out, I guess, or not, because you get to do whatever you want to do. But just keep in mind that free will remains free because of consequence. It's like this. I'm playing Grand Blue, a Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, and my brother's playing it. And he was like, I hate when games give you dialogue options that don't matter. So, like, no matter what you say, the conversation is going to proceed in the same way. So, the choice that you make doesn't matter. Imagine if, like, life were the same way. Like, no matter what you do, you always get the same outcome. Now, some people feel like that, but then also at the same time, sometimes we only do one thing. Then it's like, well, of course. Then it's like, Albert Einstein says that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. On the 1,535,719th time, there will be a success. You've only 1,500,000 more times to go. You did it 17 to 70. I can't remember the number anyway. It's fine. I feel like there's something else that I want to do, but I think that's it. I think, like, no one's asking. But one of the differences between yesterday and today, I think, not only see, but it's not even a dedication to self improvement. It almost feels like maybe the crone yesterday had an energy of like knowing how to work the system, like knowing how to say whatever to the right person or to do whatever to the right degree to get a certain outcome. But I don't want to say like maybe there's a lack of consistency between the two, but there's something about the lover today that the divine finds irresistible. Something about that flame that draws the divine. But again, that's been the energy every time that, like, or that's been the vibe every time that energy has come forward. It's like people are capable of that. What? That came out recently. Like someone who's able to stay themselves or who is able to reclaim themselves and hold authenticity in self despite external pressures to conform or fit in or whatever. And in some ways, of course, they become like trailblazers, mold breakers, the ones who prove what is actually possible rather than here's this proven formula to do whatever. And there's nothing wrong with a proven formula because I think sometimes too, maybe there's something that we do for a certain amount of time to build up a financial resource or like a stockpile or to network or whatever. And then when we go into purpose, we have like resources to do that. And maybe like that is our path. There are so many paths and so many truths, and none of them necessarily any better or worse than others. I would just hope for, kind, compassionate people who have the capacity to care, even if it causes minor inconvenience. You know, I feel like if inconvenience is the bane of our existence to the point where it stands between us and the utopianic world that we manifest, how are we supposed to find those solutions when everyone wins if we can't even risk like a little bit of loss? You know what I mean? Or when we're not even open to doing it a different way because I don't know. It's all history and planned. And of course, if we're comfortable or just to like know, even if we don't like what we know, I'm a Taurus moon and rising. I lived a whole bunch of my life comfortably uncomfortable. I may have been miserable and depressed AF at times, but at least I knew what to suspect, maybe both. I don't know. Anyway, bye.